So far we've covered how to create a blob storage through the Azure Portal. We've used the Storage Explorer to navigate the blob, to upload, download, delete, and set different permissions. Now we're going to go over the C# SDK to actually create a media uploader. So I found an example on the Microsoft documentations, the web application sample with Azure Blob Storage, but you can see it's written in MVC5.NET 4.5. So we're going to take this, we're going to update it to 2.2. We're going to do some copy pasta, and then we're going to do some more production ready code by adding some DI and just encapsulating into its own service class. So the first thing you want to do is download the zip, or you can go to GitHub and you can download the zip here. I've already downloaded it, so I can show you guys real quick what we have. When you unzip it, resolve the NuGet dependencies, you'll get this. You'll have a project with MVC5, you'll have a home controller, you'll have an index.html, they have some custom CSS, and you'll have one image that you'll need to copy over. So let's start by creating our first project. So let's go here to a new solution and let's create a new project. I'm going to create a Core 2.2 project. So if you don't have Core 2.2, you can do this in Core 2.0, 1.1, 2.1. And if you're going to pull this from GitHub and look at it, you might need to download the Core 2.2 SDK in order to actually view this. So we're going to call this project Azure Blob Learning. Okay. And give that a second to create. We're going to do the MVC web application because it mirrors the old one the closest. And then we're going to open them side by side to kind of just start copying and pasting some of the stuff we need over. Okay, so the first thing we have to do, I guess we'll go from top to bottom, is we'll get the assets. So let's do that. So let's do this, go this. And you'll see that there's already some existing styles here, but where you can see we're going to just copy from file uploader and we're going to paste under footer. And it'll do the formatting for you on the new one, so don't need to worry about it. It looks a little bit different. It just kind of parsed it for you. And the next thing we need to do is grab the image so that we can place it in our www root. So we're going to right click, say open folder, and we're going to right click on this and say open folder. And we're going to just copy this image file into here. And this image file, all it does is it contains the delete icon that we'll be needing later. You can see here, the little delete icon. Okay, next thing to do is take the home controller. So let's go to the home controllers on both sides. I'll kind of quickly just explain what is available here. So you can see on the old code, they have an index which lists all the images. They have an upload, which lets you upload images, delete a single image, delete all image, and they have a helper method here called get blob name. This is just generates a new name so that you don't have a collision with the upload of the names, because you're going to upload it with like, I don't know, image.png. And if image.png is there again, you'll write over it. So this just dedupes and lets you upload it with a random name. Okay, so we're going to take all of this and we're going to paste it into the old one, or our new one, I guess. We're going to do that. And because index.html already exists, we're going to just paste over it. Perfect. You're going to see a whole bunch of errors, NuGet not resolved, methods not existing. We'll deal with those in a sec. So the last thing we have to do is we're going to copy over our indexed.html. Okay, we're going to take this, copy, and we're going to take this and paste. One more thing we should just take is their errors, because we're going to be using their errors, so let's just use it. All right, that should be good. So now we shouldn't need this old one anymore, so I'm just going to hide that for now. And we're going to work on resolving all of our issues. So I'm going to quickly build so we can kind of just see all of the different issues we have. Okay, so let's resolve from top down, and then we'll resolve first the list. So let's first resolve this cloud blob client by getting this NuGet package. So we're going to need to install Windows Azure Storage account. This has the SDK for the 4 different storages. So you'll have the queue, you'll have the table storage, you'll have the file management, and you'll have the blob. Once you do that, just click this, resolve. And keep in mind that this is a static blob client and a static blob container, which means that these are reusable. So when we do our little cleanup and we have a kind of a service encapsulation, we'll be creating a singleton, which will kind of just be more fitting into the static life cycles. Because if you create one, there's quite a lot of overhead in creating a new container and creating a new client over time. So you'll kind of see a performance hit if you do that. So I'm going to delete some of these comments. They're just kind of cluttery. And all right, so we're going to do that. And then I'm going to resolve this. Perfect. And we're going to take this configuration manager app settings, get a storage account. So this goes to configuration. I'm just gonna call this storage connection string. And if you don't know, configuration manager actually doesn't exist in ASP.NET Core. So I'm going to be using what the default one is, which is configuration. We're going to inject that in. And we're going to be using this. And we're going to call configuration.getValue. And we're going to get a string value. And we're going to place these square brackets with circle brackets. And we're going to remove toString. All right. So once we do that, we paste over and add this here. Perfect. Okay. So up to here, this should be good. So what we're doing essentially, I'm going to change that to var, is we're having a connection string. We're going to create a storage connection. And once we do that, we're going to then create from the storage connection a blob client, which you will see up here. Also, I'm going to change these to underscores because that's my little preference when using privates. So blob client is created from a storage client, and this is, like I said, reusable. So this has overhead. Every time you need a blob client, you constantly create one, and the blob container is created from a blob client. So get reference to this name. And this is what in the Storage Explorer I was talking about, is the root container. When you have PNG, PDF, JPEG, if you have one container, you are only allowed to view its child blobs. So just keep that in mind. And I'm going to also just shorten this real quick. And all right, that looks good. Next thing here. So we have this list blobs, which is no longer a method actually that exists. So there's a new method called list blob segment async. And list blob segment async actually requires you to pass in a continuation token. So they kind of changed the way it works. So instead of returning all of the blobs, it actually now returns a little bit at the time, so it doesn't kind of overload your system. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a null continuation token. We're going to pass it in. If there are more blobs, it will return a not null continuation token. If there are no more blobs, it will return a null continuation token. So let's go create one. So blob continuation token, if I can spell that correctly. So blob continuation, perfect, token. And we're going to put that, and we're going to set that to null. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a do while loop, and then while blob continuation token is not equal to null. Perfect. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to query the list blob segment. So var response equals, it's async, so you want to use await, and we're going to go blob container, and we're going to go list blob, and we're going to pass in the blob continuation token. Okay, and then we're just going to reuse some of the code down here, and we're going to paste that in here. And instead of listing, now it already has it in the response, so we're going to check the response, and we're going to go dot result, and the result is an IEnumerable of iList blobs. So this we can actually leave exactly the same way. And the only thing we have to change here is in the response, we have to update our blob continuation token. So here, and response dot blob, and then perfect. So remember, when it passes a null back, that means there are no more blobs for it to list. So this is now ready to go. So this is completed. The next thing we'll look at is resolving this, the upload. So I'm gonna, once again, I'm just gonna clean these up because they don't really have much meaning in them. So if you want to add your own, you could go ahead, feel free to. We're gonna change this now. All right, so in the old MVC framework, we had these classes. Unfortunately, they no longer exist. So what we're gonna do is we're going to go create our new one. So requested, I guess request equals await, and we're gonna go HTTP context, and we're gonna look at the request object, and we're going to read from form because we're going to use a form to post to do the uploading. All right, so, and then we're going to grab the files, request.files. Okay, and then I'm going to add a check real quick here. So files, I guess I'll add a check here, sorry. Equals null. And we're just going to return bad request and say file. Let's do that. Let's just return files, or say could not upload files. All right. And then we have our files here, and then we do the same thing. I think we should definitely add a files.count equals 0, and whoops, sorry. And we'll do the same thing. Return bad request, and just say could not upload file, could not upload empty files. All right. So once you have that, let's just kind of clean this up. We no longer need this, no longer need that. We'll take the file count, add it here. And we're just going to now cycle through the blob reference. We're going to get the random and then just resolve this. Actually, no, this is from a file. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to change this a bit. We're going to use the stream to actually upload this. So we're going to create a stream. So we're going to go using, tab, and we're going to go our stream equals files. We're going to pass in the index, and we're going to open read stream. Perfect. We're going to take this, since we don't need it anymore, to delete this, and we're going to go upload from stream async, and we're going to pass in the stream. Perfect. And then I was just going to change that to var because I like using vars more. And I think that's it. I think this should actually work. Okay, perfect. Let's move on. Delete image. Let's clean this up. So delete image is going to be, I think, unchanged. It doesn't look like we have to do anything. Maybe just resolve this. Let's see. Delete image. Yep. That's all we have to do here. Perfect. Delete all. Okay, so we have this list blob again. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back up here, and we are going to take this functionality here. We're going to paste it down here. And all we're going to do is within this check right here, we're going to take that and we're going to pass it in here like this. And we're going to remove that. And that's it. That should work. Perfect. All right. So next thing to do before we actually run the application and see it working is we're going to set up our configuration that we had here. So storage connection string. We're going to do this. Going to do this. And so the connection string we're going to use is we can either use the one we had in our Azure Portal. So let's go back to our Storage Explorer. So the one we had in our Azure Portal, we can use this connection string, or alternatively, for development purposes, you could use a local emulator. So I already have mine running. If you aren't able to actually click this and see any of the details inside of this, you'll have to go to your Windows and type emulator, and then you'll see Microsoft Storage Emulator. If you click this, it will actually run an emulator. And what this will do is kind of just speed up your development time, so you don't have to always connect to the cloud and kind of use your dev production key and kind of use your request connections. So this will be a free way to kind of test and do development locally. So make sure you have this running, or else you won't actually be able to connect. And the connection string to connect to your emulator is kind of a little bit different than what you would expect. So if you go to here, let's see if they've actually used their development connection. Oh, they have. Perfect. So they have used development storage true. So this is a really weird connection string, but what this will allow you to do is use your local emulator to connect here. So when I start running it, I'm just going to go refresh so you guys can see. There will be an image container, and this image container will contain your blobs. I'm going to completely delete this so that you can see it be recreated. All right, so let's now run this. And close, I guess I'll close all of this. Make sure we run it. Build successful. And we'll kind of just see the functionality at hand. So right here, let's give it a second. Okay, perfect. So we have this running now. So you can see that there's just kind of a button here that says select files. So what you're going to do is select your files that you want to upload, click open, click upload, and then your images will be uploaded here. So now let's take a look at how it looks like in the blob container. So remember how we just created one? Bam. Image container, and inside our image container we have our blobs here. And if we delete one, delete, refresh, perfect. And then though there's 5 here, refresh, now there's 4, perfect. One thing I'm going to quickly do too is, if you guys can see here that there's these buttons are kind of hard to tell if they're actually buttons. So I'm going to just go here, I'm going to go view, I'm going to go index, and I'm going to just change the buttons to, instead of button default, I'm going to go button primary. And instead of delete, I'm going to go delete danger. And in the JavaScript, I'm just going to change that there. And then if we just refresh this, just a little tweak to just make the buttons kind of pop out a bit more. So now we're going to upload that, and there we go. So now we can upload, delete, view, do any of the stuff we need to do. That's all nice and good, but our code is kind of messy. If you can go here, right? It's kind of messy. So we have a lot of stuff in our controller. So let's go ahead and start encapsulating all of our stuff into different service classes and see how we can kind of clean this up to get it a little bit more production ready. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to create a copy of the controller. This is not necessarily something you have to do, but I kind of wanted to do it just so you guys, when I put it in source control, you'll have the different controllers to take a look at. So I'm going to make a copy. I'm going to call this one old, just so that when I change the home controller, you guys still can see what happened before. So let's do that. So I'm going to have a copy there, and this one should be good. All right, so we're going to create 2 things. We're going to create one that encapsulates the connection, and we're going to create a service that actually does the listing, the uploading, the deleting. So let's get started with that. I'm going to start by creating a folder here, just calling it services. Services. You can have this in a separate project. You can organize it however you would like. This is just kind of to demo and show you. So I'm going to create a class called Azure Blob Connection Factory. Name it however you want. Like I said, this is just kind of just to show you. I'm going to take that, take this, and this, and this will be a singleton. So just keep that in mind. So the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to get a client, or I guess I can encapsulate the client. I'm just going to get a container. So let's just do that. So let's grab a method called task cloud container, or cloud blob container. Resolve the namespace and say get blob container. Okay, and let's take this, pass it in here. All right, perfect. We have a get blob container, but like I said, what we need to do to get a container is we need a client. So private cloud blob client, and we say get client. And we're going to use this, and we're going to first create a client, and then we're going to go create a blob container, and then we're going to use this, and we're going to have a Azure Blob service that will do the uploading. I know it's a little bit of a abstraction on abstraction, but just it'll keep your code a little bit more clean. So first thing we'll do is we'll create a private one of this, because this is going to be a singleton. So these, we're going to have an instance of this at all times, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to have a cloud blob container, or maybe I can't type, so this will be faster. Blob container. Okay, so for both of them, we're going to do it if blob client not equal null, return blob client. All right, and then the first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to go to our home controller. We're going to reuse the code as much as we can, just to kind of give you guys an explanation, and we'll just to speed up the process a bit. So right here, blob client, we're going to take all that was necessary to create a blob client, and blob client required the I configuration, so we're going to add I configuration. There you go. I'm going to add that. I'm going to add that as a private read-only. That should now be resolved. Perfect. And then I'm going to add more defensive checks now. So we're going to go string.isNull or white space, and we're going to check to see if the storage connection string actually exists or not. And if it doesn't exist, we're going to throw new argument exception, and we're going to say that configuration must contain, not container, must contain this. Perfect. And next thing we're going to do, well, resolve this namespace, and instead of parse, we're going to use try parse. And try parse as an output value, and we're going to, instead of just do that. So instead of just parsing it, which will throw an exception, we're just going to return it out, and we're going to throw our own custom exception. Cloud storage account, and then we're going to go storage account. Perfect. And we're just going to say, we're just going to throw a new exception. We're going to say could not create storage account with storage connection string configuration, to kind of give yourself a little bit more of a meaningful message. And then we're going to create the client, and if we do, then we return the blob client. Perfect. So this will be used inside of the container here. So once again, we go if blob container not equal null, we're going to assume it's valid. We're going to return blob container. Perfect. And now if it is null, oh sorry, I'm gonna async here. And now if we do not have a blob container, so this will be like the first time you hit your index HTML and it'll start to try to list it, this will be null, and then we're going to try to set this up now. So we're going to go blob container, oh sorry, blob client equals get client. Okay, and once we have our client, we're going to then set up our container name through the configuration. So we're going to just go back here, and we're going to just copy everything that we've had here. Once again, reuse as much code as you can when refactoring. Just saves a little bit of headache, so take that up. Remember, blob container, I've now added it to our application settings as container name. So let's do the same thing. Let's actually take what we've used, copy this. I'm actually going to put it before the get client, and I'm going to call this now container name. I'm going to add container name here, container name, and resolve this with container name. Perfect. Okay, so if you take a look at this, it actually returns a boolean. So create if not exists. So if it actually creates something, then it will return true. So we're going to take that. Oh, just realize try parse. If it does not try parse, sorry, it's a not value. It does not try parse, then throw an exception, not if it successfully try parses. Okay, so take that, place that in there. Perfect. So gets container value. If it does get the container, gets it from here. If it doesn't exist, then it will set the permission. If it does exist, it doesn't need to set the permission. And then we do the same thing where we return container. Perfect. Now we have our connection factory. Let's actually just create a Azure Blob service now. Azure Blob service. Once again, we'll go on public interface, and then we'll take this, that. Okay, so what do we want to do with our blob service now that we've actually have a connection set up? So I'm going to just kind of delete what we've already completed here. So we've done this. We have our container set up. We have our blob container. And in this code so far, we've accomplished this much. We have to still do the listing part of it. And I'm just going to quickly create the interfaces for the index, the delete, and yeah, and I'll probably need to end up taking this too. So let's get started with that. All right. So task enumerable. And if you guys don't remember what we need to have in here, in the index, it expects a URI. So we have a list of URIs. So URI, we will list async. I will have the list of everything. Next is upload. And what we're going to upload is form file collection. So we're going to say task, and we're going to say upload async, and we're going to pass in an file form collection. Resolve that names. File form collection. Let me just double check what that was. Form file collection. Take that. Go here. Form file collection. That's some files. Perfect. And we're going to have our. Minimize this. Delete, and delete expects a string, and that string will be a URI. So let's name that a little bit more meaningful now. As delete async, and we're going to say string file URI. Perfect. And the last one we're going to need is just a all-purpose delete all. So let's do that. So task delete all async, and it expects nothing in. So take Azure Blob service, as in here. Implement all the interfaces, and once again go to startup, and we will be adding our services through dependency injection. So in the configure services, you want to go services .add singleton, and we want to be adding Azure Blob connection factory, and we want to add the Azure Blob connection factory as its implementation, and we will also be adding the Azure Blob service, and adding Azure. This is the interface, and there you go. So now we have both registered, and we will go back to our Blob service and start our listing. So let's create our list functionality, and we will go here. And we will cut this, go to our services, we'll paste it. I'm going to change this to a var, and resolve this namespace, and blob container. So let's now inject in our factory. Azure Blob connection factory, perfect. So this as our connection, so let's do this, and we go var container, var blob container, a little bit more verbose. And we'll say get blob container. Okay. And remember, this is async, so add an async. We'll go await. There you go. And we will return all blobs here. And there's our list all blobs. And we go here, go var all blobs. And now we actually use our Azure App Service. So I'm going to delete this. Just going to delete this. Just clean it up. I'm going to go Azure Blob Service. Resolve that namespace. and then inject that in, read only, go await, since it's async, and we're going to say list async, which will return us our list of URIs, and then we return that. Perfect. Let's go on to our upload. So I'm going to leave these here as the bad requests. You can throw an exception and then have that exception caught and then return bad requests. Completely up to you how you want to do things. I'm going to try to do the least amount of work here and do that. So I'm going to take upload. That's upload here. Once again, get our blob container, make this async. Take blob container, pass it in here, and we're missing now our get random blob name. So let's grab that, cut that, since we no longer need it in our controls. Controllers can be nice and clean. Paste that in here. Resolve this namespace, and there you go. Done. Now let's implement our upload. Now we go await Azure Blob Service, and we go upload, and we can pass in our files. So we go pass in our files. And I'm just gonna double check to see if we have to clean anything up. It looks pretty good here. And also you can create a separate functionality to kind of encapsulate this more that just takes more of pure function that would take in like a string or a stream or bytes or bind, like just a little bit more clean. But for this purpose, I just wanted to quickly just show you that you can just have a little bit more cleaner of a controller this way. So, same thing, images, let's do the same thing. Take this, and oops, not that. We go to our blob service, and we go to delete async. So let's do this. Place that here. We go async again. We grab our factory to create our blob container. Resolve this, and there you go, our delete functionality. And we go here, we go await Azure Blob Service, and we go delete as in the name. If you want to change this name to file URI, you'll have to go index, go to index.csml, and I believe here you'll have to change this match. Let's say you change this to file URI. Here, file URI, and there you go. Just in case you were curious how that worked. All right, now last and final thing, the delete all. Once again, simple refactor. Take this, find our delete all method, make it async, get our container. It goes here, and go back and clean. So await Azure Blob Service, delete all async. And there we go. Now we've encapsulated all our logic into a Azure Blob Service. We've encapsulated our connection setup into a blob connection factory. So let's run it and see how things look. Okay, got it here. So let's see, upload, we click upload, and there we go. Functionality back, and there we go then. All right, and that concludes this tutorial. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys learned a lot from this video. This was my first kind of video project into making tutorials, so I know there's going to be a lot of there's going to be a lot of lip smacking, and I have a lot more to learn about producing a better quality tutorial. If you guys liked it, please share, like, leave a comment below on what you want to learn next. I really want to produce more tutorials, maybe about Azure Functions, maybe about Azure DevOps, deploying things to Azure, or even just general C#, or even like more full stacky tutorials like learning about Vue.js, learning about React, learning about server-side rendering stuff. So if you liked it, make sure like it, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.